I would like to thank the delegation of Pakistan for organizing an open debate on strengthening international peace and security, based on the principles of multilateralism and the peaceful resolution of disputes. I would also like to thank the Secretary-General for his briefing. We supported the resolution prepared by our Pakistani colleagues on this matter. The process of drafting this document was complicated by attempts from certain members to politicize the subject. We note the efforts of the authors of the initiative, who ultimately resisted these pressures and prevented the resolution from being used as a platform to promote mechanisms not under the control of UN member states. Both the meeting and the adopted resolution aim to draw attention to the principle of peaceful resolution of international disputes, a principle of great importance to the Russian Federation. States are obliged to settle disagreements through means and mechanisms mutually agreed upon. This goal was foundational when the United Nations was created. At the same time, we firmly believe that maintaining international peace and security is only possible through strict and honest compliance with all principles of international law, in full, without exception. Deliberate politicization of dispute resolution mechanisms by certain states not only heightens global tensions, but risks undermining the credibility of the world's judicial and arbitration institutions. The peaceful resolution of disputes, the focus of today's discussion, is enshrined in Chapter 6 of the UN Charter. This principle is reaffirmed in multiple consensual documents of the General Assembly, including the 1970 Declaration on the Principles of International Law and the 1982 Manila Declaration. Article 33 of the UN Charter provides a wide range of peaceful tools: negotiations, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, and appeal to regional arrangements. Sovereign states are free to choose from these peaceful methods. No single method or combination should be imposed upon them. The Security Council's right to recommend solutions must be exercised pragmatically, with sensitivity to each unique situation, its regional context, and the root causes of the dispute. We believe that without the goodwill and consent of all parties, no dispute can be resolved effectively. Any decision made without the agreement of both parties is fundamentally illegitimate and will not be implemented. The principle of respect for state sovereignty and non-interference is equally vital. Any external pressure, procedural manipulation, or selective approaches risk degrading the authority of international mechanisms, turning them into tools of geopolitical struggle. This decline is evident in the case of international criminal justice, once a beacon of hope for the global community. Our shared responsibility is to safeguard the International Court of Justice, the UN's main judicial body, from misuse and political manipulation. Its effectiveness and authority depend on its impartiality and independence, qualities it has retained despite various attempts to drag it into political schemes. The growing workload of the court is a sign of strong trust from UN member states. Yet its financial support remains grossly disproportionate to the scale of its responsibilities. We stress the need to adequately fund the court, particularly through initiatives led by the Secretary-General. We call for the reallocation of resources toward bodies that genuinely uphold international law. In this respect, the International Court certainly deserves the necessary backing. Mr. Chairman, conflict prevention, mediation, and good offices remain among the most discussed themes at the UN. For many states, these are top priorities. Yet we witness a paradox. Despite vocal support, states embroiled in conflicts often hesitate to grant the UN a mediating role, viewing it as interference in their domestic affairs. Simultaneously, the UN itself is gradually retreating from its role as the most active mediator of global conflicts, citing a lack of influence or geopolitical obstacles. One element featured in the resolution is the early warning mechanism. We do not support this concept. In most cases, it has served as a pretext for politically motivated interference, often driven by a single bloc of countries. We maintain that effective preventive diplomacy by the UN Secretary-General must be based on trust. Unfortunately, many countries no longer believe in the UN's neutrality and refuse to host its missions. They perceive them as externally imposed mechanisms misaligned with national interests, or worse, as tools of foreign pressure. This signals that the UN has failed to adequately respect national sovereignty and leadership in its field missions. To fix this, the Secretariat and its field operations must return to genuine neutrality, as outlined in Articles 100 and 101 of the UN Charter. Moreover, the UN's agenda should not be overloaded with ideological tasks pushed by specific groups of countries. We recognize the value of work related to peacekeeping, gender equality, anti-sexual violence efforts, development aid, and climate action. However, these areas should not dominate the UN's political agenda. It's time to acknowledge that there are no universal conflict indicators. This concern becomes particularly clear when we look at the work of the UN's senior mediation advisors, where secondary issues are increasingly prioritized. A new and alarming trend is the blatant disregard and violation of peace agreements, including Security Council resolutions. Signing an agreement is not enough. Implementation is essential. We don't have to look far for examples. The Minsk agreements, which European leaders later admitted were signed merely to buy time and were never meant to be fulfilled, are a prime case of failed conflict prevention. Another key issue is the reliance on unverified data. There is a growing trend of spreading disinformation through media and NGOs. Often such biased information makes its way into UN documents and is actively used by UN staff. This must be curbed. In conclusion, the diversity of tools for peaceful dispute resolution gives states ample opportunity to settle their differences. But success is only possible when all parties apply these tools sincerely, willingly, and without coercion. Russia is genuinely interested in restoring the central role of the United Nations in maintaining peace and security by peaceful means, with the Security Council holding primary responsibility. We hope that both the Secretariat and the Security Council will draw the appropriate conclusions in due time.
Надеемся, что и секретариатом, и Советом будут своевременно сделаны соответствующие выводы.